factorise x squared plus 9x plus 20. Okay, when you've got something in this form, and by this form I mean ax squared plus bx plus c. When you've got something in this form, you need to realise that it's a double bracket, and remember when we're factorising that means we've got the answer to the grid, so we need to put it back into the brackets. Before we do that, let's just refresh our memory of expanding brackets. Let me just pick a random question, so x plus 1, x plus 2, and let's just have a look at what happens when we do this in the grid method. So I've got x plus 1 times x plus 2. So x times x is x squared, x times positive 2 is positive 2x, x times positive 1 is positive x, and 1 times 2 is positive 2. So we know this from previous videos, but my whole answer here would be x squared, and then I'd have to combine these, so 2x plus x is 3x plus 2. So let's have a look at what we actually found out using that grid. I found out that there's an x squared here, so I can remember that for when I'm going backwards in a minute. And I also found out that there's the number in that bottom right box, so whatever the number is will go in that bottom right box. And then these numbers here, they must add up to give that bit in the middle. Okay, so let's remember that. Okay, so let's go back to our original question and draw our grid. And I know that this is x squared. That's what we figured out earlier, that's going to be x squared. Which means the only two things that times to give x squared are x and x. X times x. I also know that this is going to be 20, because that was our blue number. We realise that it goes into the bottom right corner. So the things that I'm missing are the green spaces that I've highlighted here. But what I do know is that when I times this one times this one, I'll get 20. So two numbers that times to give 20. Okay, well let's just list my factor pairs of 20. So I've got 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Now what I know is that these numbers, these green ones, whatever they end up being, they must add together to give 9. Which of these factor pairs adds together to give 9? Well, it's 4 and 5. So if I pop a 4 here and pop a 5 here to keep them both positive, I'd end up with positive 4 times x is 4x and positive 5 times x is 5x. They would come together to make that 9x. Okay, remember my aim was to be putting it back into those double brackets. So my first bracket is x plus 4, and then my second is x plus 5. So it's x plus 4 times x plus 5. That's my answer. So the key thing here is to use your factor pairs. Okay, so one involving a negative. So I know that it's a double bracket. I know that this is x squared here, which means that this is x times x. And I know the number on its own goes here, so this is negative 78. So now I'm looking at what number times is by what number to give negative 78. So I need to list my factor pairs. Now you're going to ignore the negative at the moment. So this is quite a big number, so all you need to do when you're doing your factor pairs is divide on your calculator to figure out if it's a factor. So my first factor pair is going to be 1 times 78, and then 2 times, and let's just do 78 divided by 2 on my calculator, and I get 39. Does 3 go into it? So 78 divided by 3 is 26, so it's 3 times 26. 4 doesn't go into it, 5 doesn't, 6, 78 divided by 6 is 13. Does 7? Nope. 8? Nope. 9? Nope. 10? Nope. 11? No. 12? Let's just check 12. Nope. And 13 we're back round to it. So we've got our factor pairs. And this time I want my factor pairs to make 7x. Now, you don't have to add the factor pairs. You can actually take them away from each other. So let's just check whether I'm adding or taking away which factor pair is going to give me 7x. So that definitely wouldn't, that wouldn't, that wouldn't. But here, I could actually do 13 take away 6 would give me 7. Let's pop that in. 13 take away 6 would give me positive 7. So that would be 13x take away 6x is positive 7x. So that works. So let's just put it in brackets. I've got x plus 13, which is this bit here, times x minus 6, which is this bit here. X plus 13, x minus 6. Okay, let's have a go at another one. This one involves negatives as well. So again, I know that this is x squared, so this must be x times x, and I know that this is positive 12. So I know that something times by something is going to be equal to 12. So let's list my factor pairs of 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Now let's just forget about the negative at the moment. I want the factor pairs to add up to 7x. The only factor pair that adds up to 7x is this one here, 3 times 4. Now if I put 3 here and 4 here, that would make 3x add 4x is 7x, but I want negative 7x. If I do negative 3 and negative 4, negative 3x take away 4x is negative 7x, so that works. And let's just check. Negative 3 times negative 4, is that positive 12? Yes it is, because a negative times a negative is a positive. So this works. Let's put it back into our brackets. X minus 3 times x minus 4. X minus 3 times x minus 4. So more negatives involved here. First thing to do is do my grid. Now notice whenever I'm doing my grids, I'm not doing it with a ruler, I'm not being perfect about it. It's just my working out, so don't spend ages drawing beautiful boxes. Okay, so we've got factorise x squared, so that's going to be an x squared, which means that that's x and that's x. And I've got that the number is negative 24, so the number always goes in that bottom right box. Ignore the negative at the moment. I know that something times something must give 24. So I'm listing my factor pairs of 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, 5 doesn't go into it, and then I'm repeating myself. So I'm looking for the factor pair that can make negative 2x. Now, you don't just have to be adding, you can be subtracting these numbers as well. So which of these pairs could make 2 by adding or subtracting? Forget about the negative at the moment. So it could be 4 and 6, that would make 2. So let's pop them in. So we've got 4 and we've got 6. Now I want to make negative 2. So how do I make negative 2 with those numbers? Well, it's going to have to be 4 take away 6, because that would take me to -2. 4 take away 6. Let's check that works. X times -6 is -6x. And x times 4 is 4x. That would be a positive 4x. So positive 4 take away 6 would be -2x. So that's the correct answer. I just need to put it into my brackets to get the full marks. So it's x plus 4 times x minus 6. So a couple of things to remember there. The first is that you don't have to add the factor pair together, you can subtract the factor pair. And the second is forget about the negatives until right at that last minute when you're deciding, right, which way round does the negative have to go in order to get me to -2.